Hello and welcome to the Autism, ADHD and Us 3 podcast with me, Jenny Lucas. We'll be talking all things neurodiversity, including late diagnosis, parenting and everything else that comes in between. This podcast is not intended to be diagnostic. I am not a doctor. These are our personal experiences peppered with research and occasionally the experiences of others. The podcast is intended as a supportive guide through the experience of parenting neurodiverse children as a late diagnosed person, hopefully bringing some relatable stories and laughs along the way. Any relevant links will be in the show notes. Let's get into today's episode. Hi everybody and welcome to this episode of Autism, ADHD and Us 3. If you are watching or streaming, hi, I'm wearing a nice Christmas star today because it is the season, it's the festive season. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. It is all going to be about how to cope and survive during the festive season as a neurodivergent person and particularly as a neurodivergent parent. I've got notes to the side of me, so you will, if you're streaming, you will see me flicking to the side because I need some prompts. My memory's not 100%. Obviously, whose is. I just wanted to start off with a little plug. I have got a new weekly newsletter which is coming out called The Positivity Pause. There will be a link in the show notes that you can sign up for that if you're interested. And it includes a weekly positive news story from somewhere around the world and lots of different tips and tricks for how to introduce more little moments of positivity into your world and how to add in self-reflection and basically just grow your conscious awareness of your own experience and your own positive self-talk and basically help you become a happier, more positive individual. So if that is the sort of thing that you're interested in and you'd like to sign up, there is a link in the show notes. Please go and get involved. And I've got something else that I'm going to tell you about towards the end of the podcast as well, which is coming in January. So welcome along everyone. We are talking about this seasonal period, the Christmas holidays, and how on earth we're going to cope with it. Spoiler alert, don't give a fuck about what anyone thinks is the short answer. That's it. End of the episode. Just stop giving a fuck about anyone else's opinions. But we will get into that in a little bit more detail, and I have got some hints and tips for you to take, if you wish, into your own family life to see if it makes a bit of a difference. But can we just kick off by saying how completely overwhelming this time of year is? I don't know about you. I mean, I have reduced the overwhelm in my own life. I'm not a secondary school music teacher anymore, which is sad for lots of reasons. However, it means that I don't have that same Christmas rush in terms of concerts and rehearsals and my time being taken up by doing all those kinds of things, which is a bit of a shame because that was one of the best parts of the job. However, in terms of balancing that with my family life, I don't have to manage that anymore. But there are still lots of things to consider. There are things to buy, there are things to plan, there's people to visit, there's like postage to be arranged for stuff. It is just a really busy time of year. And so this episode is going to be about helping you do more than just survive. It's about reclaiming the season for you and your family and making that time actually quite special for you. No, in a no pressure kind of way, but how actually it doesn't have to be filled with meeting or trying to meet other people's expectations, because that for me, that's not what the Christmas season is about for me. Meeting other people's expectations, let go of that one, and I actually have a much better time. And even this year in particular, I'm enjoying more probably than I have actually for the last few years. I said that to my husband. We were out on a dog walk just within the last few days, and I said I'm actually really enjoying the run up to Christmas this year. I know that, you know, as I'm recording this, we're not at Christmas yet, but we are in the festive season. We've got the decorations up. I've done some buying and wrapping, and it doesn't feel like just another thing to get through. Does that make sense to you out there? It doesn't feel like just another job on the to-do list this year. I'm actually really relishing all the things that are coming together. I'm kind of enjoying all the chat of it with the kids. Their enthusiasm and excitement. I am not irritated by it this year. I know that must make me sound like a total shithead as a parent, but you know, having been in burnout for quite a long time, and I feel like I'm coming out the other side of it. Like their excitement and their joy was irritating for me, and
I've dug into that, and I think it's because there's expectation behind that, and that expectation comes with having to output from yourself and have energy and capacity for those things. And when you don't and you're running on fumes, it just becomes another thing to add to the fucking list of, God, another expectation has been heaped upon me, and therefore if I don't meet this, there will be disappointment and upset for other people. So I don't really feel like that this year, and hopefully in the course of the podcast and the newsletter, and if you're following me along on social media, you are starting to learn how I have achieved that for myself. But I'm going to give you some ideas about how you can sort of achieve it on a mini scale in the next few weeks. So what are the things that we find really challenging about this time of year? And I can talk from my own experience and conversations that I've had with other neurodivergent people around this time of year. It's all the noise for me. It's the noise and the chaos and the constant travel and the expectation to be on all the time, even in my own house. So this year, and this isn't going to be the same for every year or the same for everybody, but this year we're not having anyone to stay with us at home. The last few years we've had family sort of staying with us for a period of the seasonal time, and this year we're not having anyone to stay. And there's just something quite nice about having that time and space as a family where you don't have to be constantly thinking about other people's needs, more so than you do with your own family in your house. You're not like, I don't know, you know, when you've got people round, sometimes it's difficult to then take that time out to go and regulate. So in our house, we tend to all be in our own spaces, not all the time, but there's no sort of stigma around us all being in different rooms, especially like after school or evening time, or, you know, if we've been out together somewhere during the day and then we come home and we sort of starburst off into our different spaces for any period of time. Could be for the rest of the day, could be for a few hours, could be for a little while, because we need that to regulate, and we understand that, and that's just not, it's just not a thing in our house. It's not discussed, it's not a stigma. But when you've got other people that come into your space, it can kind of feel, I suppose, for them a bit like you don't want to see them, you don't want to be with them, because you're like, oh, I'm just going to sit in another room by myself for a while. So not having that expectation this year is actually going to be really nice, and it's going to help us be able to regulate. And also, for me, I find the transitions difficult. I mean, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted out there, but I've always found the transitions between term time and holiday time challenging. And especially at this time of year, even though I'm not a music teacher anymore and I don't have the big run up to the concert and then nothing. Like, the kids have still got stuff going on at school, and I still work term time only. So there is still that change between work routines and things, and then poof, no work routines anymore, and children are at home, and just the transition between that, and even then at the end, the transition between, oh, we've just finally settled into being relaxed at home and not having to worry about the school run, and we're a little bit more flexible, and then it's like, bing, back to work, back to school. So those transitions are also challenging for all of us to move in between. Please excuse the phone ringing in the background. It's a telemarketer scammer, and I'm not going to answer. There are some different pressures in terms of all of the things that we kind of are expected to do societally, in terms of the wish list from the kids and making sure that they've got some of the things on their list. We always say that to our kids, like, you can write a wish list, but you're not going to get everything that's on that list. Just write down some things that would be nice. And I said to the kids last week, what would be your top 3 things off your list that you would be gutted if you didn't see under the tree this year? And so I've taken the pressure off myself a little bit of the guesswork of kind of, right, well, what they've written like 20 things on this list. What is it they actually really want? Just ask them. But there's also going to be some other things on the list that they'll get. And there's also going to be a couple of things that aren't on the list that they'll get as well, because it's nice to have some surprises. Sometimes that sensory overload as well is really challenging for people. And I find it myself when you go and visit other people, and there's that kind of, for me, I tend to mask it up a lot of the time, because the people that I'm mixing with, it's just easier sometimes for an easy life. And I know that in the long run it's not easier. But when you're over at other people's houses, and it can be really draining. Like, what's the expectation about where should I sit, and do I look lazy if I'm not helping serve things or clear things away, or that can be quite a lot of pressure. But I want to let you know, if you're out there and you're feeling those things, you're not broken, you're not lazy, You're a human, and the expectations around Christmas are frankly absolutely fucking ridiculous. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by it all, or you're feeling like I was explaining, I have been for the last few years, like it's just another thing to tick off the list, and oh my god, what a headache. Don't worry, I've got some support coming your way. It's fine. It's you will get through it. And here I'm going to give you some practical tips about how to do it. Really, if you're streaming this, I'm really annoyed about the fact that I've got this lovely background on, but it keeps flicking on and off. So I just apologise, I can't do much about it at the moment. So thinking about protecting your energy then over this seasonal time, this can be really challenging, but there's a few things that you can do that are really going to help. Saying no is a big one. Now that's a boundary, and some of us still feel quite uncomfortable with boundaries, particularly when we are setting those boundaries with people we love and people who maybe don't fully understand what it is that we're experiencing in terms of our sensory overwhelm and things. And if you are a people pleaser or working on not being a people pleaser like me, boundaries and saying no can feel like the worst thing in the world, the most selfish thing in the world to do. You'll have heard me talking about this before. If you follow me on socials, you'll have heard me talking about boundaries a lot. Talk about boundaries a lot because they are actually really, really important to us having well-being and being comfortable in our environment as neurodivergent people. So no is a complete sentence. I love that. I love when I first heard that. It was like revolutionary. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation. And sometimes that's where I find myself getting tied in knots. It's like you're almost trying to justify yourself. You've said no and now you're trying to justify it. No, you can just say no, that doesn't work for me. You don't need to give any further details than that. So if there is an expectation of people going somewhere, coming somewhere, giving a particular thing, reacting in a particular way, you don't have to. You don't have to. And if you need it, I'm giving you permission not to do those things. You are allowed to say no. Downtime. Now, I was saying earlier on, when you have people around in your house, sometimes it can be difficult to schedule that downtime. So thinking about this in advance, if you're committing to events or parties or visiting people, see if you can also then schedule some downtime. If you can't schedule some downtime during the actual visit, see if you can schedule some downtime just before or just after. If you know that you're going to be spending a few days with family, after that, don't plan any big activities in. Don't plan like multiple trips or visits one after the other if you know that that's going to be exhausting or burning out for you. And again, we're coming back to boundaries. When I go home, I have a list of people usually that I am expected to see whilst I'm at home, and that list has gotten smaller over the years because I just haven't got capacity to fit all those visits in the space of like a few days. So I've had to draw some boundaries, draw some boundaries and maybe shorten it. If I am trying to see quite a few people, shortening the amount of time that I'm spending seeing people. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But can be a really crucial way to like conserving your energy. If you do have to see people, you can limit the amount of time that you're actually seeing them for. Also, if you are away at a family event, say you've gone over to family's house or whatever, and there's lots of people there and you've got your kids, take advantage of that if you can. Like, sneak off into another room for a little while and take some sensory stuff with you. Like if you've got fidgets that are particularly useful for you, or noise cancelling headphones, or sometimes for me I just need to go into a room and stare at the wall just for a little while and just not have any thoughts. just be a little bit blank-minded like a cat and just stare and just like breathe and be really present in that moment of where I am and the fact that I have no demands on me in that moment. Even if it's just 5 minutes, I've done this at my in-laws before, especially during the summer when we have had barbecues and everybody's out in the garden and we're always busy and there's lots of stuff going on. I will retreat back to the house, just into their spare room for a few minutes. I will lie on the floor. If I'm feeling particularly adventurous, I'll lie on the floor with my legs up the wall and I will just breathe and I will just be grateful in that moment that no one needs me, that I'm enjoying this 5 minutes of peace, that this is going to be enough time to help me recover enough to be able to then go back out and be in the environment with everybody. And it's that mindful awareness, which I talk to you a lot about mindful awareness, but honestly, this stuff has been life-changing for me as a neurodivergent person, as a neurodivergent parent of neurodivergent children, like mindfulness and being really aware in the present moment. Not all the time, because sometimes that's overwhelming and distressing, traumatic. But when you're taking that time, let somebody else run after the kids for 5 minutes. Just go and be really present with yourself in those deep breaths and in that like moment of calm. And it's actually incredible what an impact that can have going forward. Like, I'm not saying that you're going to come out of the room a new woman or man or person, but it's like plugging your phone in on charge for 20 minutes. It just gives you a little bit more to help you get through. Also, take a little sensory survival kit with you. So if you've got kids that hate a roast dinner, like mine, which I'm very sad about, because, you know, I'd love to have them be included in my roast dinner, but they don't enjoy a lot of the things that we produce for Christmas dinner. So we also make waffles, and we will make some chicken nuggets if they need it, or we'll make some plain pasta with cheese, and they can choose that. We tend to do like a Christmas dinner, but like select your own from the middle of the table. So I will have some choices that they can have, and if we're going away somewhere, I will make sure that my husband or I have a conversation with whoever it is that we're going to and just say, could you also make sure that you have some tomato pasta or some XYZ, so that I know that there's something that the kids are going to be able to select and they will feel like they're a part of it, because it's not like they're having a special meal made or anything like that. They're just getting to choose from the things that are on offer that are available to them. And we have sometimes we take snacks, particularly when they were younger, and we had more like snacky bits in the bag. We would make sure that they had stuff so that they ate, because fed is best. And it doesn't really matter if your mother-in-law has made the best roast in the world if your kids don't like it. Take some stuff for them to eat. And who gives a fuck? Like, you have to, that's another sort of boundary point, is if people are going to say something about that, hold your boundaries and kind of grey rock it in terms of like, oh well, this is what my kids do. This is what we need. Like, no further explanation required. And, you know, on that point, stop giving a fuck about other people's opinions. Like I said right at the start of the podcast, this is probably the most important thing that will preserve your peace during any interaction ever in the world, regardless of whether it's Christmas or not. You need to be working on not giving a fuck about other people's opinions. I cannot stress that enough. If I could impart one piece of wisdom to you about how my life has changed since I've started accommodating myself, since I had my diagnosis, since I've started on this self-love journey, it is stop giving a fuck about other people's opinions. They are none of your business. What other people think and feel is their responsibility, not yours. If you're a people pleaser, you've probably got some trauma response happening in your body, potentially, I don't want to generalise here, that is trying to keep you safe. Obviously, your brain is constantly working to keep you safe. So whatever situation you find yourself in, your brain's primary objective is to keep you alive and keep you safe. And that is heavily impacted on how you were brought up as a child, whether you felt safe to share your opinions, whether you felt like you were valid, whether you had a voice as a child. Like, there's so much I could dig into here. I'm not going to dig into all of it right now. But having those needs met by your caregivers meant that probably if you were not able to show up and be yourself and have your opinions and have emotions and express, and you were starting to then fold parts of yourself away or hide parts of yourself or close down and make yourself smaller, that has impacted how you show up as a human being now in the world. No matter how old you are, that formative experience is still playing a very big part in how you're showing up in the world. And lots of that people pleasing is around managing those emotions and expectations of other people so that you're not a disappointment, you're not too much, you're not overbearing, you're not any of the things that have been sort of negative for you in the past. I'm here to tell you, you can change that. It is possible to change that. And again, other people's opinions are none of your business. If they are not prepared to think about themselves and ask the questions and be curious about why they hold that opinion, or why you bringing food for your children to eat at the Christmas table is so fucking offensive to them, that is their problem. That is their problem. Okay. So this is really important to me, and it's a really, really key thing to be aware of, is letting go of that judgment of other people, whether it's family members, whether it's friends, whatever. And I know it's difficult territory. Believe me, I know how difficult this is and how uncomfortable it is. And I don't always practice what I preach. There are still times where I go to the default fawning option, but I am more aware of when that's happening. I'm more aware of why I'm doing it, and I'm more aware of doing it less often. So I'm consciously sitting with the discomfort and allowing myself to sit with the discomfort and allowing myself to move through that and feel the progress. So you're not here, generally speaking, you're not here to live anybody else's life but yours. And that was a question I asked in a coaching call that I had within the last few weeks. I posed that to the person I was speaking to in the call, that whose life are you living? Who are you living your life for? And that's a big question. Like, we're talking about Christmas season stuff here, obviously. But generally, if you're struggling with boundaries, if you're people pleasing, if you're fawning towards other people and always putting yourself bottom of the list, whose life are you living? Because it doesn't sound like you're living yours. Okay, harsh, but hopefully something to give you, something for you to think about. So self-compassion alongside all of this is a huge game changer, particularly when it is this time of the year and this Christmas season. Okay, you probably heard the analogy a million times: put on your own oxygen mask first before helping others. Like, it's what they tell you when you're on a plane: put your own on before you help other people. Because if you try to put somebody else's on first and you then lose oxygen, you'll pass out. So you've helped them, but you're dead. So it's an absolute necessity. And see, when you're a neurodivergent adult, especially a late diagnosed one who's maybe been like a high masker, hello, that's me. This is absolutely crucial to you having happiness, well-being, capacity, like all of the above, to living a satisfactory, happy, content life. Self-compassion is the absolute fucking game changer. It's an absolute necessity. You're allowed to have needs and you're allowed to have boundaries, okay? And that is particularly true during the season, this time of year, this Christmas season. You're allowed to have needs. Look at you meeting everybody else's needs. Look at you seeing what everybody else's needs are. Why are they more special than you? Why are they more important than you? Who's meeting your needs? Are you meeting your needs? Does anybody else know what your needs are so that you can get them met? Come on now. You are allowed to have needs, and you are allowed to have those needs met. And you're allowed to meet your own needs. And sometimes those needs are going to be, I don't want to visit you because I need time to rest. I am overstimulated, overwhelmed. That's okay. That's allowed. Totally allowed. When you meet your own needs, okay, and again, we're talking about a longer term goal here, so not just Christmas season, but it will help in the Christmas season if you start to recognise your needs and start to meet them. You then have capacity to help others and meet their needs. I was going to say being selfish. It's considered being selfish, I think, in society. If you put yourself first, or you do something that's for you over and above the needs of other people, that is viewed as being selfish in this society, and that's wrong. Who does that benefit? I'm not going to dig into all of that right now, but think about it. If you're considered, if looking after yourself is considered selfish, who is that benefiting? It ain't you. Sorry. Okay, so when you actually meet your own needs, okay, when you break through that barrier of, oh, this is so selfish, oh no, what are people going to think of me? They're going to think that I think I'm important and I'm not important. Like, when you break through all of that bullshit in your own mind, right? And it is bullshit. And I say that wholeheartedly, being the person that had all those thoughts, that had that kind of self-talk with myself. When you start to see through that facade and actually realise that you are a valid person who has needs, who has wishes and hopes and dreams, who deserves to be loved and looked after and deserves to be able to show up in the world wholly, validly who you are, and you start to meet those needs and you start to do those things, funnily enough, your energy increases, your level of contentment increases, your emotional capacity and bandwidth for other people increases, your patience with your children increases, because guess what? You're filling up your own cup. And when you fill up your own cup, you've then got more stuff to give to other people, because you're not constantly trying to run on empty. You're not running on fumes all the time. You are fulfilled and comfortable and nourished, and you can then go out and comfortably nourish others. And it's the same during this Christmas season. You can have some great meetups with family and friends and whatever else. If you limit those to the number of them that you're having, or you build in breaks for yourself in between those visits, you're then going to have a better experience in those visits that you do have, because you have nourished yourself, you've rested, you have built in brain breaks for yourself, and you're not constantly running on empty to meet everybody's needs. It's important. Okay, so I want to talk about doing Christmas your way, okay? So you've got permission to ditch the traditions, okay? Set up your own new traditions. I mentioned earlier on that society puts a lot of expectation on us about what Christmas should look like, what a fairy tale Christmas is, how much money you've spent on the kids, how many billions of presents there are under the tree. That the tradition is that the children will come down in the morning and that all the presents will be under the tree and they will unwrap them all. And like, if your kids don't want their presents wrapped, don't fucking wrap them. If that's too much overwhelm for your kids and it throws them because there's like too much of an unknown, don't wrap them. If you don't want the expectation of doing Christmas under the tree first thing in the morning because that's too stimulating for the kids and they find it overwhelming, don't do it. It doesn't make any difference to anybody outside your four walls whether that is the way that you've had your Christmas day and Christmas morning or not. Find the things that work best for your kids and for your family. If a turkey dinner sounds like hell, get a Domino's in. Like, have a pizza. Like, do something else. Like, do it your way, man. There's no right way to do Christmas. You might have parents or in-laws or family that think there's a right way to do it. It's just their way of doing it. That doesn't make it the right way to do it. So be brave to have your own traditions. Plan ahead like a ninja, right? I love planning ahead like a ninja. The autistic side of my brain loves a plan. Loves planning ahead. Really organised. ADHD, not so much. We fight that out quite a lot of the time. But when autism's in charge, we do really well. Okay? In our family, and this is the way we've always worked, and this should have been the biggest fucking red flag for me that I was autistic, but it wasn't. Since my children were born, I've always talked through the plan with them about what we're doing next. And I'm a verbal processor, so even when I'm sat on my own, I will talk through the plan for the day with myself. That's why I love doing a podcast. It's why I love doing social media content, because I love to talk. I love to put things out there. So our children always know as much as possible in advance what the plan is. What are we doing tomorrow? This is what we're doing tomorrow. Tomorrow is a PJ's day. There are no expectations. We are going to chill. We're going to get some nice food in. We're going to maybe have a buffet for dinner. Like, we're just going to have picky bits. Like, you can just relax, chill, whatever. That's fine. Okay? Then it's set up. We'll do a dog walk, like, whatever. But no great expectations. Tomorrow, we're going to Nanny and Grandad's. So we're going to be getting up early. We're going to be packing the car. We're going to be driving for a little while. We're going to be at Nanny and Grandad's. There's going to probably be like a buffet style or some sort of like food thing. Your cousins are going to be there, or everybody's going to be there, and we're going to be there till X time where we're going to be coming home again. And it's just letting them know what's coming up so they can plan in their brains for what's going to be happening. Okay? They're going to know. And you can say things like, don't forget to pack a bag, take your headphones, take a screen, take some fidgets, take some snacks, whatever it is that you want. And I'm lucky enough, my kids are old enough that they can handle that. They love packing a bag. My kids love packing a bag. They hate unpacking a bag, obviously, but they love packing a bag if we're going for a day trip or we're going away on a holiday. Oh my God, I'm so lucky they pack their own stuff because they know exactly what they want, and I don't give a shit what they wear because they've never made a poor choice yet. So they pack the things that they think that they might need, and I might give them some suggestions, but you know, they put together what they think they might need for that day, and I'm very grateful. I know that not everybody out there is in the position to do that, but I am lucky that my kids have that level of autonomy and awareness and can plan those things in advance for themselves. And it just helps avoid surprises. So obviously things change, and when things change we will let them know that as much as we can, and things change and it sometimes causes a meltdown or there's a disappointment or there's an upset, and we deal with that. But as much as possible, what works for our family is laying out the plans for the kids so that they know what's happening. I know that for some of you out there that would be too much. It would be too much expectation for your children. You do entirely what works for you. That's just what works for us. And also, my preference, and this is happening more and more now in our family, is that we do short visits over long marathons. There are some people in our extended family who think that the amount of time that you spend with people shows you how much you love them. So unless you spend every last possible waking second with them, you're rude. If you want to only go for a few hours and then leave, oh, you're rude. Like, you've ruined it. Totally ruined it. Like, would they ever question that about themselves and why they think that? Absolutely fucking not. Excuse me. So for me, it's all about quality over quantity. And if that means going for a few hours and then being like, right, fuck this, we're done, let's go. But we've had a lovely time, we've had a laugh, we've really enjoyed each other's company, hasn't been that taxing, hasn't been overwhelming, like all day long, I would prefer that. And that is now the majority of the time what we do when we're planning trips with family, is that we aim for quality over quantity. And we've just let go of giving a fuck really about what other people think of that, because we know the impact that it has on our family and our kids when we don't do that, when we try and acquiesce and give in to the other people's sort of thoughts and demands. It doesn't work for us. So we don't do it. So I'm hoping that during the course of this episode so far, you've got some really useful stuff that you can take away and have a think about for yourself, for your family. But I just want to recap some of the top tips that I have mentioned in the episode to help you with this. Say no more often than you say yes. Absolutely, you are able to set some boundaries. You are allowed to set boundaries, regardless of what other people think. You are allowed. And if that feels uncomfortable and scary for you and you feel guilty, sit with that. Be curious about that. Why? Where does that come from? Whose voice is that? Whose opinions are those? Why is that important to you? Does it have to be important to you? So many questions. Plan downtime like your life depends on it, because it does. Whether that is downtime in between visits to places or downtime during those visits, actively plan it in. 5 minutes out, couple of days off, whatever it is, actively plan it in. You will feel better for it. I promise. Bring sensory tools and safe snacks everywhere you go. There's some lovely people that I follow on social media, and there's lovely Flo who I follow, and she has like an emergency toolkit pack that she's gone through on her page quite a few times of stuff that she takes with her everywhere she goes just in case she needs it. It's wonderful. Be unapologetic about doing things your way. Now, that might not come to you like right now this season. If this is something that's new to you or it's something that you've just started working on, like you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like, fuck it, I'm going to be unapologetic about my lifestyle. Like that will come over time, but work on that idea of being unapologetic about what you need. And finally, stop giving a fuck about what people think. And again, that might not be something you're going to wake up tomorrow and be like, right, I don't give a fuck what people think. But be consciously aware of working on that more and more. And I promise you, it will make such a massive difference to your enjoyment of this season and your enjoyment of life in general. So, this season does not belong to other people. It belongs to you. It belongs to you and your immediate little family unit. You do what works for you and fuck everybody else. It's your Christmas, not theirs, excuse me. So, if you have enjoyed this episode, thank you very much for listening. Please could you give me a rating on whatever platform it is that you're listening to this on, because that really helps push the content out so that more people get to experience the joy that is listening to this podcast. You can join my mailing list, the Positivity Pause. The link for that is in the show notes if you haven't already rushed to do that. Please do join up. It's packed full of ideas to bring more self-awareness and just a little moment of joy in the week. It tends to come out on a Friday, so it's a lovely way to sort of ease into the weekend. And please come along and join my Facebook community. If you are on your own in this festive season, or you feel like you're on your own in this festive season and you would like some people to share anything with and just feel not so alone in this festive season, we're over on Facebook. We are the Empowered AuDHD community. It's run by my Audistically Me page. That's me. And please do come and join. It's a safe space for you to share whatever it is that's going on and get some support with anything that you're finding challenging at this time of year. And a final little plug, I am running a new course called The Power of Happiness in January. It's a 4-week course. I've got a wait list for that at the moment, which I'll also put the link to in the show notes. If you're interested in finding out more about that, joining the wait list does not mean that you are committing to anything at all. It just means that you're going to be on the mailing list to get more information out about that. It is running through some mindfulness techniques and strategies and how positivity, positive psychology and happiness can really help impact your life for the better, and it's a lovely way to start a new year. So if you're interested in coming along and joining us for that, please let me know by signing up to be on the waiting list, and that will be in the show notes. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you about the Christmas season and the holiday season today. I really hope that you've got something useful out of it. If you've got any comments, obviously all my contact details are in the show notes. Please ping me an email. I promise I do read everyone. I do reply to everyone. And if you would like to leave a comment on this podcast, wherever you are watching it or playing it, listening to it, then please do. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you all in 2025.